Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the evening session of the City Council meeting. Now that we've resumed in-person meetings, we encourage people to submit their comments online. If, however, you would rather submit your comments online, please know that online comments for the evening meetings will only be accepted up until 4 o'clock p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments may be submitted through the City of El Cajon's website, which is www.cityofelcajon.us. Under Agendas and Minutes, go to Video Streaming, and you'll see a button to submit your comments. Meeting is called to order. I'd like to ask the Deputy City Clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Goebel and Ortiz are absent. All others are present.
Thanks. Would you please stand with me then for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a brief moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. All right. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Sir, we have no changes.
Council members? No. All right. All right, we're at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, Housing Agency, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, Council, Authority, and agency members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Jackie, do we have any cards under public comment?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, we are now at public hearing. Item number 100 is regarding the Housing and Safety and Environmental Justice Element Project, and I'd like to ask our staff to please introduce this item.
Good evening, Mayor Wells, members of the City Council. I'm Melissa Devine. I'm the Planning Manager here with the City of El Cajon. And today I'm here to present to you the General Plan Amendment. This is an amendment to the city's general plan, which is our overall vision of how the city should grow and develop over time, and sets out policies for the direction of the city in various topic areas. This particular general plan amendment is to update our city's housing element, which is on a specific time period of 2021 to 2029, update our safety element, and adopt a new environmental justice element. The safety element and the environmental justice element updates are coupled with the housing element because of recent changes in state law that require those elements upon adoption of housing element. I'll just briefly touch on each of these elements. They're discussed in detail in the staff report. The first element, the safety element, addresses 6 different hazards that are experienced. And these are air pollution, extreme heat, flooding, geological hazards, hazardous materials, and wildfires. The update to the safety element looks at new policies that can help protect our residents and property from these hazards. And I provided some examples here of the types of policies that are included. These include improving air quality through the planting of trees, ensuring that buildings are constructed to safety standards, and promoting community safety by preparing residents and emergency responders for disasters. The next element, the new environmental justice element, identifies specific areas in El Cajon that are termed environmental justice communities. And these are communities that, because of risk factors such as higher unemployment, lower incomes, poor air quality, are at risk for certain health problems such as cardiovascular disease or asthma. And the environmental justice, the crux behind environmental justice is that we look at ways to reduce these health risks by improving air quality, access to public facilities and recreation, food access, and help to increase physical activity. The focus in the environmental justice element was in looking at what the city is currently doing in this particular arena, focusing on those programs and enhancing and improving them. A few of those are identified here. One is the apartment inspection program, the proactive apartment inspection program that goes out. We have an inspector who goes out to multifamily housing projects and identifies if there's substandard issues that need to be addressed. And this really helps to head off any issues that maybe landlord or tenants may be afraid to report to their landlords. We also have a tobacco enforcement program where we work with our tobacco retail licensing, have a minor decoy program that it really helps to reduce minors' access to tobacco and other products in El Cajon. And then you'll also see in the environmental justice element land use policies that look at limiting or preventing new land uses that could have negative health impacts in these communities. So the overall intention with the environmental justice element is to build on what we're already doing and look at ways that we can prioritize getting improvements out to these neighborhoods. The next element is the housing element. And because of state law, there are requirements that we have to address in the housing element. So we have a very prescribed sort of formula that we have to follow. We have to update the housing element every 8 years. And so we're coming up on this new 8-year cycle. And within the housing element, we have to address current and future housing needs through an analysis of demographics, as well as looking at opportunities and constraints to housing. We have a sites inventory that identifies where new housing can be located in El Cajon, and a housing plan that identifies programs, policies to facilitate housing production. What's new in the housing element is this new focus on affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is just to make sure that housing access is equitable across the city. We're not concentrating affordable housing in one specific area, and that we're making sure that all groups have access to housing. Go into a little detail here on a couple of these items. One is the sites inventory. The city of El Cajon received a allocation as part of SANDAG's regional housing needs allocation of 3,280 units. These are units that we have to plan for over the cycle, the housing element cycle, and we have to identify where housing can be located on sites that have residential zoning or could be zoned for residential use. The city's strategy has been to build upon what we've done in recent years with the mixed-use overlay project, the transit district specific plan. These projects increased housing capacity within El Cajon, and so with this particular housing element, we can accommodate our entire arena on our existing sites that are already zoned for residential use. So no rezonings are required. The last item that I'll cover is the housing plan, and this addresses all the programs, policies, and actions that the city is going to be undertaking to facilitate housing in El Cajon. And it's all under the overarching goal of increasing, improving, and preserving a variety of safe, decent, and affordable housing types in El Cajon, and just making sure that all of our residents have access to the type of housing that they may need. There's a couple of examples here that I provided of programs included within our housing plan. One is to update our zoning code to align with some recent changes to state law, to create a plan that will help facilitate the production of accessory dwelling units, and to continue offering programs that help our lower income households with their housing needs, such as our down payment assistance program, as well as our housing rehab program. In accordance with CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, a negative declaration was prepared for the project, and this is due to the fact that this is a policy document. It doesn't authorize any construction, so there are no potentially significant impacts as a result of the project. This environmental document went through public review. Only one letter was received from Caltrans and did not address any issues related to the adequacy of the CEQA document. So over the last 15 months of the project, we've undergone a fairly extensive public outreach process, which was challenging during COVID. But we were able to, along with our consultant team, to use online surveys, virtual meetings, newsletter articles, social media, website, to really get the word, try to get the word out and get feedback from community members on what they'd like to see for each of these different element areas. In addition to that, we did undergo a review by the California Board of Forestry and Fire Protection for our safety element, and they did review that at the July 13th meeting and had no recommendations. The housing element has had a preliminary review by the Housing Community Development Department, and after a potential adoption, it will go through another review for potential certification. And I would like to note that we did receive, just within the last couple of days, a letter from the Housing Federation, and it was provided to you. This letter made some recommendations in regard to the housing element. However, at this time, we don't see that there's any edits that need to be made in response to the letter, that we've covered what concerns they raised. So just to conclude on the findings here, so the housing element is really intended to ensure the provision and maintenance of housing in El Cajon. The safety element will ensure that risks from natural as well as man-made hazards to people and property are minimized, and that residents in our disadvantaged communities have access to safe housing, healthy foods, public facilities, recreation, and that this general plan, we have met all the noticing requirements, and it is internally consistent with the other elements of the general plan. The general plan was reviewed by the Planning Commission. There were several workshops, and then most recently on July 20th, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval to the City Council. And staff's recommendation is to adopt the next resolutions in order, approving the negative declaration and the general plan amendment. I'd like to note that we do have some members of our team available via phone tonight. We have Dudak Environmental, Asha Blyer, as well as Holly Saffron with Veronica Tam and Associates, who helped us with these elements. Thank you.
I want to thank you for the report. I know that there's a lot of work that goes into this, a lot of staff hours, and please thank your team for that as well. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Gary? Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask Jackie if we have any speaker cards.
Yes, sir. We received one online comment from Stephanie Harper, and it reads, just a few suggestions that won't cost the city too much money and won't take that much time to do. We could use some of the over 40 trash bins that are sitting, not being used at the Civic Center and around City Hall, and spread them throughout the city. If people have nowhere to put their trash, then more than likely they will put it on the ground and pollute our city. We need to stop cutting down our trees and bushes. If you go to Mount Helix and look at El Cajon, then look over at La Mesa, you can see the difference between on how green they are and how concrete we are. It is a shame on how we cut our beauty down instead of planting green. More trees equals more shade. Another idea is to set up cool zones, places that have missing machines and shade, throughout the city that could be taken down in the winter time. Last, in low-income areas where families reside, we could initiate a rent cap for those residential owners to ensure that our seniors do not become homeless or lose their homes to lien put on property owners. We would not have to invest so much more housing or have to wait until they are built. Just give a break to those who are already residing in a place. We need to work smarter, not harder. It may upset a few property owners, but it would not make them homeless. Maybe just one less new car for the year. Thank you for your time. End of comment.
Thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion to close public hearing. Second. Please vote. All right, council, this is pretty straightforward, but certainly open any questions or comments. Garrett?
It all looks good to me.
Michelle?
Yes, just because I'm new.
Okay.
So we are wanting to pass what we have in front of us right now?
Yeah, the housing element's required by the state, and there's been new guidelines, so they brought the new guidelines and plugged them into what we're already doing and then made adjustments to that so we meet the state requirements.
Okay, and then what about the document that we received that talked about the environmental justice and alike?
That's all part of the housing element, but if you'd like to ask questions specifically about the environmental justice component of it, we could do that.
This is now. So I did have a question about that.
Why don't you come back up?
See through these, sorry. So on the other document, I forgot what it was called. It was purple or blue or something like that. And it talked about the environmental justice communities. So if I were to understand that map correctly, the thin outline of the map was the overall city boundaries, and then the heavily lined areas were the two top or the worst communities as far as El Cajon goes, correct?
That's correct.
And then, so what do we have planned for those communities? Because I happen to live in one of the environmental justice community. What do we plan on doing with those?
So all of the policies in the environmental justice element are focused and geared towards those specific communities. Some of them could have applicability outside of those areas, but you'll see policies that talk about prioritizing investment within the environmental justice communities to building that into the city decision-making process.
Okay, and so just bear with me, if you will. There are a lot of streets like Mollison and Bradley, between Bradley and Greenfield. That's my neighborhood, so I know that the best. A lot of older houses built in 1958, 57, and are there plans to tear those down and put in multifamily units?
There are no plans to remove any housing. The housing element has policies about preservation of housing and, adding to that where we can. Likelihood with those neighborhoods where you would see increased housing would be through accessory dwelling units, new units like that.
And have we looked into like the 3D printed houses and making those more available or anything? I don't know how that works, but
not specifically. We don't have any policies that specifically address it, but we don't have anything that would prevent someone from coming forward with that type of housing as long as they met code requirements.
Okay. And are you still taking suggestions for ideas for, we have no pocket parks in our area. We really don't have any green zones. Most of the trees or whatever's left in people's yards. And so it's quite hot, especially towards my end. We don't have a lot of trees. Do we have plans in the general plan to address that? And what is the time frame for bringing those changes in?
So we do have policies that speak to increasing tree canopies within those communities because of their multi-benefits, providing shade, improving air quality.
Right.
We also have policies that speak back to the El Cajon Parks Plan, so the Connecting People to Parks Plan, which is a strategy for how to increase the amount of parkland through pocket parks. So that would be the primary strategy. The rate of implementation is really dependent upon budget decisions that the City Council makes.
Okay. And then one last thing. Has anyone addressed the two properties around the corner of Mollison and Bradley on both sides? If you go up Mollison and you come to Bradley, it's the very last property that's vacant. It's been torn down, and the one across the street, and then there's one next door to that, and I believe there were 6 houses that they took out. And I know some of them are in the county part, but from what I understood from the project manager that's doing the Bradley widening, they're only going to be using part of those parcels, especially the ones on the corner of Mollison and Bradley. Are those are in the city, I believe. Those, okay. And if they only use part of it, is it possible that we can put in like a green area with a bench and maybe some, the little doggy bag holders and a garbage can, something, just a little and maybe a couple of trees. It's not going to be it's not a very big lot, so you can't do a whole lot, and it just depends on how much of the property that Caltrans takes. But it just seems to me that would add just a little bit more character, and maybe a resting place for those of my neighbors who are walking their dogs, especially during the summertime. Gives the dogs a little bit of a grassy place to go because we have nothing out there. I noticed that the bus station at Broadway and Mollison, that has no shade. It used to have a cover on it, and that shade is gone. That's in front of the 76 gas station. And so there are different areas. How can we incorporate some of these little changes here and there that fit in with the environmental justice portion of this? How can citizens, I don't want to say report, but suggest or put forth ideas on that? And that's probably been covered the past year, past 15 months. I was busy.
Well, just to take a step back, so we did receive that feedback from folks. We asked those questions, what's missing in your community? What do you love about your community? What would you like to see more of? So we did solicit that feedback.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are other opportunities through, City Hall town hall meetings and things like that to solicit even more feedback from these communities. And one of the policies in the environmental justice element really asks the city to kind of reach out even further to those communities who folks may be more reluctant to participate in public meetings to really find out what the core issues are.
So can we maybe contact your office or send something to you and you can forward those ideas on, or who do we?
Ms. Mitchell, I'd recommend, so first of all, these are very specific projects that don't really relate to the general plan. Although the general plan provides these larger policies, you're talking about very specific things that would not be included in these plans. So as ideas come about, there's opportunities to put them on the city council agenda or to kind of save them up, and as we do goal setting sessions and things like that, that's kind of the time to bring those forward. And we're going to tie that in with the budget process a little bit better this next year. So big projects or little projects that are of interest that the council wants to do can then be incorporated in the budget. Because if you don't have those two things aligned, then they're just pipe dreams, right? So that would be the appropriate time to bring those forward.
I apologize for my ignorance. I thought that it was all part of the environmental justice community portion.
The environmental justice kind of provides these big policies that, for example, it says that the city should prioritize, that should be one of the prioritizations, right? So if you have two equal streets that have the same degradation, that both need repair, and one happens to be in a higher census tract area and one is a lower census tract area, the policy would steer those scarce resources to the community that has the less resources, right? And so that's kind of what the policy, it doesn't say the following streets will be paved in the next year. That's really part of the CIP, but this helps inform us how to prepare that CIP and then bring that forward. And then when we bring that CIP forward, we will make sure that we connect it back to anything in the general plan, whether it be the environmental justice or the safety element, whatever those elements are, it gets tied back into those elements.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, those are all important things, and you're right. Those are things that probably do go hand in hand with environmental justice. Okay, then I'm looking for a motion. If somebody wants to make one, there's not that many of you left, so.
I'll move adoption. I'll move to adopt next resolutions in order to approve the negative declaration and general plan amendment.
Okay, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Okay. Well, this brings us to the adjournment. The adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 27th day of July 2021, is adjourned until Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 3 o'clock p.m.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you depart, I'd just like to first point out my thanks to Melissa Devine, our planning manager, and the city staff, Spencer Hayes and Alfonso Camacho, in concert with our consultants, did a fantastic job over the last 2 years, especially dealing with the pandemic, as Melissa was indicating, in terms of the struggles that they experienced for community outreach. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude to Melissa and the rest of the team on producing such great work. I'd also like to point out, I'm not sure she'll be too pleased with me or not, but this is Melissa's last meeting. So Melissa will be leaving the city of El Cajon. If she wishes to share, I guess, is that okay? Her and her family have decided, her husband has taken a position with the Department of Defense to teach at an Army post in Eastern Germany. And so the whole family is leaving San Diego, it's leaving El Cajon and moving to Germany and starting a new life there in the next few weeks. So I just want you all to know that and how much we will miss her here, miss her smile, miss her good work, and her leadership. So I just want you all to know that.
And we told Melissa she couldn't leave until the council adopted the general plan. This is her. This was her baby. She's the one that's seen this all the way through. So you had the ability to say no, and then she would have been stuck here.
If you had told me before, I would have put it off for another month or two. So
Melissa, sprechen Sie Deutsch? Oh.
What city are you going to?
The post is Grafen near Germany, so it's pretty rural. Yeah.
Well, good for you. Congratulations, and thanks for all your hard work. And Tony, I didn't realize you were coming up, so I apologize. We are adjourned.